Welcome to the Inner Alignment Podcast, a neuroscience approach to healing anxiety and depression caused by childhood trauma stored in the body. With the right tools, healing long-term anxiety and depression is completely possible when you heal at root cause. Join me as we expand boundaries in the field of trauma recovery with the revolutionary Inner Alignment System, a 6-layered approach to addressing stored trauma in every layer of the body. Welcome to the Inner Alignment for Childhood Trauma podcast. I'm your host, Kim Beekman, and I have the privilege of being here with Daniela Hess today. Welcome, Daniela.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you. I love this work. I love what you've been up to and what you have really brought forth into the world. So this is a thrill.
Thank you, Daniela. So Daniela's been on her spiritual, mental, emotional path for like 30 plus years. She's been studying meditation and yoga, Qigong. She's trained hundreds, if not thousands, of yoga teachers in spiritual sciences. Daniela, you're a coach, you're an educator and spiritual guide at Inspired Living with your focus on embodiment and addiction recovery and navigating the grief process. You're really a connector and a soul guide. So I'm so honored to be here with you to chat a little bit as we get this podcast started with some of the fundamental concepts that I have been grappling with for many years, and I know you have as well. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. And I'm excited. What we share in common are a lot of favorite things. And the top of the list favorite thing is a passion and a heart of service towards how do we support people in the alleviation of the mental health crisis that is unnaturally skyrocketing here in our contemporary Western culture. I always love hearing what sources your why in that specific department.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. As you said that, I just thought of how, you are from the Montessori and I'm from the Waldorf, education systems. And when you said that, I could feel like both of our care for the development of the human, the whole human. So I heard that in what you just said. And I think, if we look at this mental health crisis that is all around us, and I have 3 teenage daughters, right? So I am raising children in this mental health climate. I know that you are raising children or have raised adult children. And I think as we look around, we see anxiety and depression. We see teen suicide, we see marriage issues, we see people waking up spiritually, but feeling lost in their careers. There's so much that humanity is holding right now. And at the same time, there's so much light on this planet. Like yoga and meditation have become mainstream. Like 10 years ago, we didn't, we were the weirdos who were looking at life in this deeper way.
So, and wearing t-shirts that said, eat your kale,
Right. Like we were the weirdos because we've both been on our path for over 30 years. We were the weirdos. And now it's become kind of cool and mainstream to go to yoga and to meditate and to do mindfulness. And so, while we're in this deep mental health crisis in society and we see more and more people turning to meds or quick fixes for things that are really rooted in the multi-layers of the body. At the same time, we see people waking up spiritually and going toward the mind-body approach and accessing mindfulness practices and well-being. So I have to highlight that in the space of, post-pandemic and really starting to see, myself, I have 3 daughters and, we had this year 3 teen suicides in one of my daughter's schools. Like I don't remember that when I was a teen, right? And so there's a deeper and deeper disconnect from the soul or from the psyche. As you mentioned, psychology is the science of the soul, right? So that space where psychology and soul work intersect, I think, is so absolutely important.
And our kiddos, our youth are, every generation has, this is what our youth are facing. And these generations are navigating what we didn't as children, as youth growing up. We didn't have the technology that was pulling our attention away even more out into the material, out into just away from our souls. And there are even more than ever distractions and challenges. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look around and feel this isn't right. There's something not right with the numbers of depression and anxiety and loneliness and addiction. And these are symptoms of this greater problem, of this inner disconnection.
Yeah.
Those are not the problem. Those are the symptoms of the deeper problem, which is really what drew me to work with you as a client. I went through your level 1 program, and I'd love it if we could talk a bit about the inner alignment system. It is so, in my experience, and I have, like you, been a spiritual seeker and explored many modalities. Why? Because we want to be free of our own unnecessary suffering. We want our own healing. We want to heal ourselves and work through anxiousness, depression, loneliness, addictions, etc. And there are great benefits to talk therapy. There are great benefits to EMDR. There is great benefits to being a client of a psychiatrist, and for many reasons. However, you and I both over the years have seen client after client still not able to kick the anxiety, to kick the depression, to be literally free of it. So you developed what I would say, in my opinion, is one of the only systems that I have yet to discover that actually gets to the very root of the source of the problem. So can you tell us a bit about the inner alignment system? You have led hundreds of students through this program. You've trained over almost 150 inner alignment practitioners and facilitators and healers. You've trained yogis. So can you tell us about the genesis and the methodology around the inner alignment process?
Yeah, of course. So inner alignment is a compilation of 30 years of inner work. So I have to honor the path and all of those modalities that you've shared: yoga, meditation, EMDR, IFS, myofascial release, craniosacral, chakra balancing, Reiki, right? All of the things that you and I know have both tried over the years. And through that experience, what was clear to me is, yeah, talk therapy is the go-to, and talking about our issues from the mind, from the prefrontal cortex is great. It helps us to express ourselves. It helps us to bring a certain level of understanding. I know that I had my decade of therapy early in my life, starting at like 15 years old. And so it helps us with that understanding. But what I've found as I've worked with people over the years, and as this inner alignment system basically formed itself through the building of the understanding of what creates anxiety and depression, is that we need to address mental health issues from every single layer of the body. And in yoga, there are 5 koshas. In inner alignment, we'd say that there are 6 layers of the body. And so we really are such complex complex humans in a way, right? We've got our physical bodies and we've got our nervous system and we've got our neurocircuitry and our neurochemistry and we've got our mental body with our thoughts and our belief systems and our subconscious mind and all of our habits, our automatic habits and patterns. And we have an emotional layer of ourselves, like the fear that lives within us, the love, the joy, and the fear that's stored deep within the body. All of us emotionally want to feel safe and connected and worthy and loved and seen, like we matter, right? And then energetically, we have these energies within ourselves, right? The energetic aspects of our chakras or the way that energy moves through our bodies. And then we have our awareness or our consciousness, like the way that we are able to witness ourselves or have wisdom about our paths. And then we have a layer of ourselves that is the bliss or the nirvana or their spiritual oneness, right? So we're so complex in this six-layered being that it's not surprising that if you go at healing through one layer or through one modality, it's not going to be effective in healing anxiety and depression. And so what I've found through working with people, the inner alignment process that was really shown to me was that trauma or old experience from early childhood is stored within our bodies. Like we have this experience at 6 years old, and the experience, it really is neurosynaptically auto-associated on every layer of our bodies. For example, like someone says, you did that wrong, and you're at school and you're all self-conscious and you're scared and you want to be accepted, right? And you feel that in your body and you have thoughts of like, oh, I did this wrong, or I'm a bad person. And you have emotions like, oh, I'm a failure, I'm bad. And you have a physical nervous system response, right? And so this experience gets frozen and stored in the body, and we call these trauma packets. And then these trauma packets will continue to reverberate into our present moment. And we're 40 years old and our boss says something to us and we feel like we've done something wrong. So that's the premise of inner alignment, is there's this stored experience that's stored on every layer of our body, and it will continue to reverberate into our present moment experiences forever and ever. Like I've worked with 80-year-old clients who had a polio experience that was reverberating into the present moment. So yeah, these experiences from our perspective in inner alignment are old and they are pervasive into the present moment. And that's what we call anxiety and depression, really.
And we can create an entire lifetime built upon that one thing we decide about ourselves. Like in this instance, let's say the person decides in that moment, and it's a moment that happened. It took 2 seconds, start to finish, to happen. And maybe this person decides, I'm really stupid. I'm so stupid. And you now construct a whole world to try to compensate for that. You don't want to be perceived that way. And yet deep down, you're really, really believing it. So it's like you can't just escape it. And we can't just think our way out of it, right? Like we can be 30, 50, 80, and until that has been healed, we can't just think our way to freedom, which lends itself to the brilliance of the inner alignment system. So I wondered if you could talk about the 3 specific aspects of this process.
Yeah, and if I could just touch on what you just said, right, we can't think our way out of it. So everybody's listening to podcasts and reading self-help books and, analyzing their problems. And even in talk therapy, you may have a feeling experience in your body, but talking about it brings it up to the mind, into the thinking brain. And the thinking brain's not where the trauma or the issue is. It doesn't live in the thought body. It lives in the physical, energetic, emotional body and in those old trauma packets, those old experiences. So I think your point is just so brilliant, which is that thinking and analyzing our body-based vibrations really doesn't do anything, and it just keeps us in the mentality of bad and broken, or stupid, or unworthy, or not enough. And those are stored old experiences that live in the body and are not even relevant in the present moment. So I often, Daniela, think about it like there's trauma, there's a fire in the basement of the house, right? There's a roaring fire in the basement, and it's kicking up smoke to the upper floors of the house. And we're doing a lot of things to essentially blow the smoke out of the upper floors of the house, right? We're doing yoga and we're doing meditation, we're doing EMDR, and we're doing all of the things to just be able to get a breath, to get a breather, to get some space, to feel present. And talk therapy is like sitting on the roof, like narrating. Okay, we've got a fire. There's smoke. It's coming out of the windows. Let's understand the situation. And that's important. It's important to know and to understand that. But that trauma that's stored in the body is always going to be kicking up smoke, or we're always going to be feeling the effects of that stored trauma or that stored experience in the body. And I think that's the essence of really a holistic or integrative mental health system. Um, so yeah, we really have three components of inner alignment. The first is what we call the soul retrieval process, and soul retrieval is a shamanic term, and we've kind of updated that term. Like shamanism has soul retrieval as like a dream journey through the dimensions of consciousness. Whereas in inner alignment, soul retrieval is an 11-step process into the deeper dimensions of your body-based trauma and fear. So it's different than traditional soul retrieval, but through the inner alignment soul retrieval process, we essentially are able to move from a situation where you're triggered in the present moment, like my husband told me to do the dishwasher in a different way, and to travel into the body's memory of that experience so that we can work the root cause, that seed moment where I felt criticized or wrong as an 8-year-old by my alcoholic father. And to be able to work that issue in the space in the body, the experience of the past that's living in the present moment, and to be able to work the thoughts and the emotions, the fear, the void of spiritual connection, and the fight or flight response, and the energetic imbalance that's happening in that experience of 8-year-old Kim, right? So we can get in there through the soul retrieval process and really begin to bring higher consciousness, 40 or 50-year-old thoughts into the 8-year-old experience, the divine connection into that old experience. We can bring a new way of thinking and feeling into that root, into that core experience. And when we're done with the soul retrieval process, we can go back to, okay, what do you feel now about your husband telling you to load the dishwasher differently? And there's a completely new consciousness. There's a completely new set of feelings and a new awareness, more compassion, more understanding in the present moment, because the experience was healed and cleaned up in that memory that was replaying and regurgitating into the present moment. So that's really the first tenet of the work, which is getting into the body-based trauma packet and beginning to create new thoughts, emotions, experiences, nervous system responses, so that that will then translate into day-to-day experience. How would you describe that first tenet of inner alignment work?
Well, at first, coming to the program, I came with a situation that I wanted to work through because it was very painful and very challenging in real time. And it was because I had met with you and because I understood the three aspects of the process. It really appealed to my logical mind around healing. I was able to give myself to the soul retrieval process because we weren't focusing on the event. We were going way back to something that didn't even really seem like it would connect to the current event. So the proof to me was in the methodology, because my mental body was saying, I didn't come to talk about the lost spoon when I was 6. I came to talk about this big, horrible, nasty thing that's happening right now.
Yeah.
And yet it really made sense and it worked as a direct experience. And you and my other facilitator, Sandy, were so skillful, and you're so steeped in this methodology that I knew that I was in safe, good hands going through this process, because again, it didn't make sense to my mental body. Why aren't we talking about the current event? Why are we going way back over there? And the freedom that you experience, the freedom that I experienced in this, are only through embodied felt sensations. And then I related to my here and now in the unique curriculum of my life differently. And so that was, I mean, I had so many incredible experiences.
Most people who come in to do that depth of work will come in with the thought of, we're going to figure out this current life experience, but with the concept that the current life experience is really playing out in that specific way because there's a deep underlying unworthiness, some flavor of unworthiness that's really deep within, and that formed us and set the tone or the foundation for this specific current life issue to play out in the way that it is right now. And that's a very different philosophy than working it on a specific layer, because we can work every aspect of that experience. And some people will come in with a specific trauma and say, I want to work this trauma. And we don't really know that that specific trauma is the one underneath the current life issue. And so Bessel van der Kolk's work on The Body Keeps the Score, or Peter Levine's work, has really, set the mental health world up in a way to know that there is this stored experience. The body keeps the score. And truly, we don't know what underlying trauma is creating the issue in current life, that marriage issue, that work issue, that relationship issue. And it could be what we call a big T trauma, or a little t trauma. The big T traumas being, like sexual assault or being abused by a parent. Little t trauma being like being made fun of at school on the playground, or having a sibling who was unkind during a period of life. So, no matter what, big or small, it doesn't matter. We all have childhood trauma, and these experiences are stored deep within the body. And it's from that we'll play it out unknowingly, unconsciously in the current life. And so the trauma packet that's underneath the current life situation can be totally random and seemingly unrelated, like you said.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So
Yeah.
that's the first of a three-part approach. Do you want to walk us
Yeah.
through it?
So the history is I started doing this soul retrieval work because it was just being shown to me, this process of soul retrieval. And I would do this work and I'd be in this 5-year-old memory with people. And then, they would feel great and feel like totally healed after a few of these sessions. And then, after a month or 2 months, they will have attracted what they wanted in life and they'd be really on their high flying disc, as Abraham Hicks would say. And then, like, they would rehabituate back to the old patterns. And what I started to understand, bring in Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza and all of the habits of being us. And before I actually had even read those books, what I was seeing in our clients was this rehabituation to what was neurosynaptically wired within their brains and their bodies, right? Like if we're set up to live life with a fawn or a fight or a flight response, or if we're set up with this unworthiness that we've been playing out for 40 to 50 years, then our brain and our body is literally structured. The infrastructure of our neurosynaptic wiring is set up for unworthiness, and we will eventually rehabituate there unless we spend 2 months rewiring the way that we think and the way that we breathe and the way that we feel emotionally and the way that we work with our energetic body and the way that we see our lives and the way that we see other people. And it was in that space that I could start to see the need to rewire every single one of the 6 layers of our body in day-to-day life so that we can recondition ourselves. The concept of neurowiring and the auto association of thoughts is really fascinating. And we've heard Joe Dispenza say it in recent years. Neurons that fire together will wire together. And so in childhood trauma, we had neurons firing together of I'm not worthy and I'm not smart and I'm not worthy here and I'm not worthy there. And we had all of these clusters of experiences where our thoughts and our nervous system and our emotions all get auto-associated and wired up together. And it will fire automatically. Just one of those thoughts or one of those emotions or one of those triggers will fire us into that auto-associated set of thoughts, emotions, feelings, and experiences. And so we're wired up that way. And so the rewiring process takes 2 months. And it's a really systematized approach to set new auto-associated neural networks in the brain and the nervous system, in our thoughts and our emotions, and the way that we work energetically and spiritually. So that's what we call the rewiring process in inner alignment. And it truly is 2 months of rewiring every layer of ourselves so that we can recondition ourselves to be able to have and hold happy thoughts in our our neurowiring, to be able to hold happy neurochemistry in our endocrine system and our hormonal and neurotransmitter system, right? To be able to feel good, feeling good, because so many of us are cross-wired where sadness and suffering actually feels familiar and normal, which equals good in our bodies. Isn't that fascinating that we get really wired up to suffering patterns or powerlessness or victimization patterns or scarcity patterns, and because they feel familiar, it feels normal, and then we feel like that's our home, that's our homeostasis.
I think you just described so brilliantly. I think it was David Wilcox who often taught about um, we're really literally addicted to suffering.
Yeah.
That's exactly the why. That
Right.
is the science of that. It's not like we sit around saying, oh God, I wish I could suffer more. Yet we can't think our way out of that either because it's a wiring issue.
Yeah.
And the rewiring process is really fun in this program. Like it really is. It's just so direct experience, and it's client led. Like we're the ones that have to show up for the rewiring process, and I found it to be a very empowering aspect of the process.
Yeah. And the rewiring practices, some of them are new and unique to inner alignment, and some of them live in the healing field. But it's the cocktail or the formula of it and the consistency of it that we know is repeatable. Like we can set people into this rewiring space alongside the soul retrieval process. Soul retrieval is giving us new seed experiences in our bodies, and then the rewiring practices are basically setting the environment or the conditions within the 6 layers of the body to hold these healing experiences. And the two of those together really provide an integrative, sustainable, and repeatable process so that at the end of 2 months, people can then hold that new neurocircuitry for themselves simply by sustaining the practices post program. And that to me is the most important thing, because there are too many healing programs that require you to be dependent on the healers to sustain your healing. And I think that disempowers people. And if it's not self-sustainable, then we're creating dependency-based relationships. And that's not ethical if we can avoid it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the third aspect.
Yeah, the third pillar, I think, is one that's a little loosey-goosey in a sense, if you haven't been on your spiritual path for decades. And that is love. Like we all know that the divine is love, that love heals all. We've heard of the fifth dimension or oneness consciousness or Christ consciousness, or we all know that spiritual healing is so simple at its core. And if we could just call it love, the dimension of love, the frequency of love, the energetic infrastructure of love, it's really the most important ingredient to healing, which is coming back into a space of love. And so for us, in the way that we've built inner alignment, we are working ourselves into our hearts as practitioners, deeper and deeper and deeper into the love that we are. And we're holding a container of love. And we're demonstrating love in action, forgiveness. It's okay if you're late. No, it's good. We forgive ourselves if we make mistakes. Like love in action, secure attachments, safety and connection in our human connection. That is such a critical component to the healing process. And it's something that ideally in childhood we had modeled for us, right? A mother who comes when we're struggling and we need help, someone who's there for us when we need a band-aid, right? These are fundamental, secure attachment, loving attachments that hopefully got installed within our brain and our nervous system and our bodies, within our sacral chakra, within our root chakra at an early age. But those of us who have childhood trauma or had human beings as parents, essentially, because the human condition is pretty flawed.
No
And we know
avoiding
as mothers
There's
that
no avoiding it.
there's no avoiding the human condition. And no parent can really do this perfectly or right. Gosh, with all of the wisdom that I have and all the healing that I've had and I've provided for others, I thought I'd be able to do it, quote unquote, right and in this enlightened space. And the truth is, I'm not an enlightened being, and therefore I could not provide an enlightened, parenting experience for my kid that was flawless and perfect, because that doesn't exist in the human condition. It doesn't exist. We all will experience light and dark. And in that experience, I think we need to help people rebuild that feeling of safety and connection, of feeling like we're valuable, that we're loved, that we matter, that we matter to the divine, that we are divine. And that's what I would call the sacred container of love that needs to be in place in a healer and a healee working relationship. And the way that we do that is by having healing teams. And I think the healing team is an important way to feel held in, this is going to sound corny, but in a family or in a community where we can see parts of ourselves through the different people who are holding space for ourselves, right? We can be in that holographic experience of humanity and be like, oh, this person holds love for me, and this person sees me in this way and can hold love and care for me. And as we explore this deeper, we can know that, oh, I have a lion, and a lion can hold love for me, and a bear can hold love for me, from the Ayurvedic doshas and the fact that we're all really deeply different from each other, and that love looks different depending on someone's nature. So that's a lot of words to say that we must heal within the milieu or the environment or the external conditions that are deeply loving. And love takes so many forms and shows up in so many different ways. And without it, it becomes really challenging to heal, and to have it is like the most healing salve, or the aloe on the wound, really, in the healing process.
Mm. And in my experience through your program, the container of love is reflected in the way you and the practitioners are really present with participants and clients, whether it's on text, whether it's on Zoom. Astounding levels of patience and presence you and the facilitators bring to your clients in this program. It's really, really unmatched, because the love that I felt around it transcended your personality. It wasn't like Kim's love. It wasn't Sandy's love. It felt much more universal. It just felt much more universal. It's coming through you in the way you express and show up. And the facilitators, but yet it felt much bigger than you both. I don't think I had really thought about it in that way until this conversation. So I'm really glad that we're spending time on this. I was also reminded of, there's a moment in the movie Interstellar where I think love is described as a force like gravity that pulls you closer and closer to yourself. Like that's the job of love, is to keep bringing you home to yourself, keep bringing you home so you can really meet yourself, and then step back out into your life, right? And play the character full out that you're here to play. But it's kind of with a nod and a wink now. It's like, oh, and I really know what I am. What I am isn't character I'm playing. What I am is this love. You merge as the participant, you merge with that third aspect of the inner alignment process, which is the job is done when you recognize yourself as that love.
Gosh, that is so beautiful, Daniela. And I just appreciate your ability to articulate that. Because like as we train coaches and healers, and one of the fundamental aspects, like the core aspects that we train first is to be the divine instrument, or to tap into sacred presence, whatever that is for the person. It might be, Mother Earth, or it might be, Buddha or Jesus, right? But to actually become an instrument of divine love is very different, as you said, than personal love, or like, oh, I really like you, right? It's not about what Kim Beekman likes. It's about really tapping into seeing someone's soul and being in the space of love that automatically generates from the heart. When you were just explaining that, I'm like, right, there is a toroidal field. There's a morphogenic field. If we look at Heart Math Institute's work, there's literally a torus, or like, a tornado of energy that when you activate heart consciousness, you can envelop someone in that deeply loving fields of presence. And then all you have to do is drop into your heart space, or the heart consciousness, or heart resonance, or whatever your word for it is. And then the person in the space, in that virtual space with you, can then tap into that part of themselves through the law of resonance. And so, I mean, it really, it's to encapsulate this love or loving presence it's just such a vast and yet extremely simple concept, because it's a field. And then once someone is in that field of presence or love or heart consciousness, or whatever the name of that is, then it's almost like their body starts to understand where they want to get themselves to every day and every moment of their lives. So it's through being in that feeling that we then know, oh, there's this bliss body, this heart consciousness, this feeling of deep divine nectar that I can have access to any moment in any day of my life. And I don't need to go looking for love in all the wrong places, because it's right here in me, and I can experience that alone or in the presence of someone else. And wow, that I think describes that third pillar of the work, because there's not many places. Like, people will go into meditation and they'll transcend, or they'll go into a deep yoga nidra and feel, that deep peace. But to know that that is a space where we can actually live our lives from, and emanate out, so that you're like a self-cleaning oven that just walks into a space and reverberates heart consciousness, such that what you attract through law of attraction is more of that frequency, or that love. And luckily, HeartMath is starting to measure it, so it's less woo-woo, right? They're starting to measure the heart rate variability and heart rate coherence, so that this can become a more measurable and tangible thing.
And one of the things, so beautifully said, Kim, thank you. One of the things that I love about the inner alignment process is that it's completely regular and welcomed and two thumbs up. If somebody comes in and they're like, I don't know what my experience with the divine is. I mean, I grew up going to church. That was what it was. Or I had, great experiences with church, and yet it still abides as a belief system, not an embodied experience. Participants will come out of this process knowing the unique sensations of the divine within their own being.
Yeah.
It really is like, and I don't mean like, oh, it tickles or it's prickly or it's hot. Like, I mean, like, you just know it's like the right note for you. And it just clicks, it just fits you. It's like, you got it. And bringing that direct experience out into the rest of your life, you shift the energy of any space you're in. You can rest. People pleasing, and I have to fix things and come up with solutions, just starts to gently rest, because it's the vibration that's being emitted through you because the work that you do in this program is like, it's like removing twigs and sticks and leaves that are in a creek, right? Like, and all of a sudden now that energy can flow really clear and clean and efficiently and swift. So you're not losing like a leaky bucket. You're not leaking energy trying to control and fix and manipulate and make happen. And why wouldn't you do that if you don't know another way?
Yeah.
And yet this is really the antidote to that. And there's a calm that participants at the end of this feel pretty nestled in. How would you describe an ideal client that's ready for this program? Like, what are some of the things that would help somebody listening, or a practitioner or a family member say, oh my gosh, like, I really think this could be for you?
Yeah.
What would you say is really would best describe an ideal client who's really ready for this journey?
This intensive format is not for everybody. Like, it's not a quick fix. It's an intensive, kind of labor intensive 6 to 8 hours a week of, healing sessions and coaching sessions and being mentored and taking part in group sessions. And, it's a very intensive, highly one-on-one program. And so it's really important that someone has done their 2 to 10 years of healing on a specific layer of the body, whether it's been talk therapy or yoga or meditation, that they've been on their healing path for some time. Because you once said this is like the last stop on the healing train, right? I remember hearing you say that once. And it really is important to have just exhausted your own self-healing path a bit, because this work is deep and it will reset the foundation of your being. And it's good if you've rewired the way you think and the way you feel and the way you meditate. So you want to make sure that you've done, the preliminary work, to be able to really commit to this being your lifestyle post-program to sustain it.
For me, I'm so grateful and appreciative of the 2 to 10 years that, I experienced prior to coming to Inner Alignment. And it just reminded me of, when I look at the whole trajectory, like a lawnmower mowing down dandelions, right? But that, like, eventually they just grow back. And there's a gardening tool. I don't know what it's called, but it's long, and it extracts the dandelion, and I love dandelion, so it pains me to use this analogy, but it does get it right out at the root. And we know how deep and far and wide those roots can go, especially when you get the dandelion that's like got a solid base and like 6 blooms coming up. So the previous work is like mowing. And this really gets in there with that tool that just gets the whole thing right out.
Yeah.
It's an extraction. It really is
an extraction. It really is. Like, we do often feel like precise surgeons with the right tools. And I think a lot of people have been trying to do surgery with a hammer, and their healing process has been like, I feel broken, I feel more broken. And the precision of this work is just really profound. And it's labor intensive, but it's worth it on the other side because we're working with that neuroscience of healing. So thank you, Daniela, for just sharing your experience and your insight. I'm so grateful for this time. And I know that we're going to be able to dig into a lot of these concepts in more detail. You offer so much in your work, and it's so uniquely different from inner alignment and complementary. Do you want to share a little bit about what you're doing over at Inspired Living and how that work looks and how people can connect with you if they want a spiritual guide and mentor on their path of healing grief or working in embodiment practices?
I love focusing on supporting participants in a myriad of ways. And I share, like you, the belief, like in every cell of my being, that it is our birthright to experience ourselves in our wholeness, which is really what healing is really like coming back to that embodied experience of our wholeness. And so I love working with participants either before they come to you, because it can help people to be a rung on the ladder to you. And I love supporting people on the path after inner alignment, because the Soul Quest program really helps to bring balance to the head center, the heart center, and the core center through working with different virtues and ways of being and living. And I really believe that our lives, the curriculum of our lives, are our spiritual path. So I love supporting people in the now. How do you take everything, all this knowledge and transformation and learning, and now live it when you get that text from your kiddo and you are just about to do something for you finally, or there's a very painful or tragic loss in your lives. So I love helping people to experience themselves as the spiritual being they are, having the human experience in their lives, and really living these principles in their lives. So I'm at inspiredliving.us if anyone's curious. And Kim, I just thank you so much for this conversation. I love this
Thank
work.
you. Thank you, Daniela, and many blessings to all of you. Love you. Thanks for tuning in to today's Inner Alignment podcast. If you're ready to dive deeper into your anxiety or depression healing process, learn more about our 2-month Inner Alignment healing program. The healing program addresses trauma on all 6 layers of the body, and the program has been successful for over 400 participants. If you're feeling ready to join the community of healers who provide this sacred and profound healing work in the world, maybe it's time to become an inner alignment practitioner. If you think this is your dharma or your life purpose, be in touch. Find out more at KimberlyBeekman.com.